Good morning and welcome to Voices of Change. My name is Aissia Richardson and I'm your host today. We're going to be talking about redistricting. And so last week we talked about redistricting on the congressional level and the state house and state senate. And I've got some links for you to be able to see what's happening on the congressional redistricting. But this week we're talking about city council and city council redistricting. And I'm so pleased to have Abu Edwards and who is with Millennials in Action. Abu, welcome to the
Thank you so much. Good
show.
morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit about Millennials in Action, and then can you frame the discussion a little bit about what's going on with the City Council redistricting and how citizens can get involved in it?
Awesome. Thank you. So Millennials in Action is just like this idea, right? We started when we founded a PAC called Millennials in Action in 2015. Our goal was to engage urban Black millennials in Philadelphia to get involved in the process, to get involved in civic engagement, and to take voting a little bit more serious. Since then, we branched out, to have Millennials in Action LLC, which I'm the founder of as a consultant. And I get an opportunity to work on a really exciting projects like councilmatic redistricting, voting rights, and it's an organization that's grown over the years, not just like by population, but idea and branding. That millennials in Philadelphia is the largest voting bloc, and if we can just get a piece of that demographic to vote, then we will definitely have a higher voter turnout. And I think that then the city will be held accountable for their actions. Um, you know, I had opportunity to come on board as a consultant with the Committee of 70 to oversee the community input sessions surrounding councilmatic redistricting. When the U.S. Census dropped their data in 2020, we saw that there was an increase in population, not just in growth in Philadelphia, but also when we're talking about different cultures and ethnicities. And city council every 10 years have to redraw their maps. So based on the US Census data, we saw that there's been an increase in growth in population across the city. And normally, this process is really like kept internally with city council based on their charter where the council president makes the last say, the last call on drawing these maps. So what we decided to do is to really, get the community input in this process. We looked at the maps across the city. We saw that there's going to be different shifts in population growth and different councilmatic districts. So we hosted about 14 community input sessions where we organized community leaders, RCOs, committee people, ward leaders, businesses, language access organizations, and literally, had a conversation and say, well, how would you like your district to be drawn, right? Because we
Mhm.
know that, a lot of our business corridors and our community organizations are represented by multiple council people, and it's very hard for them to even fulfill their mission in helping people and moving their community forwards when they have to jump through the ropes of talking to different council people. And we all know that every council person has their own councilmatic priorities, right? Some council people may want to fund and make sure that all their business corridors are up to the par and that their businesses have it. Some other council people may not want that, right? Their focus may be, okay, I'll make sure your trash get picked up on time. And
Mhm.
so we have to make sure that people in the community who pay taxes, who live in the community, have an opportunity to be a part of this process. And it's been very interesting because we've engaged over like 600 organizations across the city, and along with hosting another like 14 different community engagements and trainings to get people involved in this process. Um, the first day of council was Tuesday. And they released the maps, proposed maps for council. And to be honest, before I even get to that part, when we did all this community engagement and we went around the city, what we also did is put together a briefing. And we sent that to every city council person in Philadelphia, and we asked them to join this briefing. And what we did is that we gave a rundown and the breakdown of what people were talking about in each councilmatic district in each area that was population growth. We had people directly from the community. Now, we didn't meet with everybody. We had 1.6 million people in the city of Philadelphia. We didn't get a chance to
Right.
meet with everybody, but we did everything we possibly can to get voices who are impacted by that area. And after we did a briefing to council, we also did another briefing that same day to the media, letting the media know like this is what we found, and we want council to take this in consideration before they release the maps. And now since they released the maps, a lot of what we discovered was ignored. We saw that there were more splits created in the council districts, and more people are like, okay, what can I do next? How can I get involved? How can I let my council person understand that this is not the right map to do? And what we have to do is that they have only one council hearing for this, and that is going to be on
Mm.
Wednesday, the 26th at 10 a.m. And we have to make sure that if you care about this matter and you truly care about picking, your representatives picking you, then you need to show up and you need to testify. And if you submitted a map for city council to take in consideration, you need to testify. So if you're interested in getting involved in this issue or testifying, and you may not know how to sign up for city council and make sure that your voice is being heard, I ask that you send me an email, please, which would be in the chat at millennials in action hq@gmail.com. That's MILLENNIALS action hq@gmail.com. And also, if you are free Monday at 7 p.m., and if you need help, crafting your or if you need help trying to testify, we're having like an open office hour to help you draft some of your speaking points, or even to educate you a little bit more about this issue and why it's so important.
So can I ask a question about the process and the citizen impact or citizen input? Is this as a committee of 70 planning on hosting its own public hearings about this? I mean, I know that you did community outreach, but are there any plans to do a side by side public hearing to shine a light on this issue? I think that we saw with the recent mapping that the governor did that there was no public process, there was no transparency, there was no accountability
Um,
in this process. And so, what is the Committee of 70 or what is in Action doing to be able to end the um, public input?
so right now, what we decided to do right now, the goal right now is literally to help people get to the hearings on Wednesday. Like that is our biggest push right now, is to really push people
Hmm.
to the council hearings. And even if folks are not going to testify, to even zoom in, and to create a presence that people are watching and people are looking. Unfortunately, you know, we put out a roadmap and got over 90 organizations to sign on, calling for transparency and also calling for, that when they drop these maps, that they at least have a 3-week window for communities to generate input. And that didn't happen. So we're actually,
Hmm.
like I said, the goal is to push people to the city council hearings on Wednesday at 10 o'clock and have them testify. And also to call your council person now. If you live in a council area where you know that there's been a shift in population and you've been following, councilmatic redistricting, we need your voices more than ever. Some of your council members need your voices as well, because we were told that some council members didn't have a input in this process. So we have to continue to make this process more transparent. So I think that's where the committee of 70, from the community input session is kind of standing, because that's like, the only day for us to really get a lot of input on Wednesday. Now, hopefully in
Oh
the
wow!
future,
So it's. Hmm.
like hopefully in the future, in the next round of councilmatic redistricting, we are looking at, what Chicago has done and what Pittsburgh have done, in putting together, a like an advisory council, and go in that advisory council will take the authority to go out to the communities and host these community sessions, so that this power won't just be in one person's hand or the president of city council hand, but will literally be a transparent process.
So is this something that would have to be a ballot initiative? Is this going to be a charter change to be able to do that?
So I think it's gonna, and I don't want to speak out of
To
portion. It would possibly have to be
Mhm.
a charter change, because the power lies
Mm.
directly with the president of city council. Um, so, but I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
but then other folks have said this as well. It's like, it all depends who's the president of city council, right? Former presidents of city council, have, who've had this authority and had this power, engage council members, on their districts and how they want their districts to be drawn. So it literally depends on who's the council president, at the time. So I think if we want to make this and kind of take the power, will probably have to be a charter change, but also buy-in from council members.
Okay. All right. So this council race coming up is really important then. This next municipal race
Wow.
in May is really important because you want to be able to influence, what the new council, what the new mayor's priorities are going to be in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, so the council race is in 23. So right
Hmm.
now, like, as you stated before, a lot of voters are taking it a lot, right? Because there's three levels of redistricting going on. You got your state, you got your congressional, you got your city, right? And
Right.
there's a lot going on with the state maps. There's a lot going on with the congressional maps. And it's like, we just have to make sure that we're educating people, and letting them know, the difference between all three levels and how they impact your address and impact you as a voter. So it's just quite interesting and exciting that we're here, and we've done all this work, and we thought that making the community involved in this process, council will literally take that in consideration and say, okay, we may not be able to do everything that you want us to do, but we are listening. And I think, we have to continue to keep beating the drum, because, city matters, like city issues matter, and this race is going to be more important than ever. And right now, some council members are thinking about running for mayor. And we just have to make sure that this doesn't become a habit. So I'm just asking everybody to really, call your council person now and ask them, like, what do you think about your new maps? How do you
Yeah.
feel? And this is my concern about this map. And I just hope council members take the time out to listen to their constituents, before Wednesday, so that they can hear what's going on. They have the roadmap, they have our briefings, they have all the data and the Zoom calls that we provided. And also, there's another portion of this that we haven't talked about, and right now we're figuring out how to put pressure on, is the fact that allocating, those voters who are on state road, back into those councilmatic districts, because right now,
Right.
in that district that was controlled by Bobby Heenan, majority of those folks on state road are predominantly from BIPOC communities, but they're being counted
Right.
in a one district, and that's prison
Right.
gerrymandering. Those numbers need to go back to those districts where they are from. And if we look at those numbers and
Exactly.
look at who's being housed and incarcerated, we will understand that the majority of those folks are BIPOC and Black and Hispanic folks.
Right, especially since we have a increase in the population in the Philadelphia County prisons because of COVID and the restrictions around getting to the court dates, and people are being housed there much longer periods of time. I think one of the things that really needs to happen is the folks who are able to vote in the Philadelphia prisons are given their ballots so they can do their mail-in ballots. If you are able to vote, you can vote in prison. you can vote if you haven't gone to trial yet, or if you're about to be released, you can vote. So I think that that is also a really important part about making sure that we get the folks who are incarcerated active and engaged in our civic life. I think that this is, like doing the redistricting and making sure that folks are counted where they're from is also a really important aspect of that too. But I think that a lot of times when folks are incarcerated, they've given up on the system. They've given up on voting. And so we have to make sure that people understand, if you don't vote, you don't count. And so those it's 4,700 people who are at CFC, who are at the Philadelphia prisons, and that's back to, that was, you know before the pandemic we were decarcerating, and so, the city was closing prisons, and now it's gotten to the point where it's a crisis in the Philadelphia prisons in terms of like the number of people are there who are there, and the number of incidences that have happened in with deaths. We had 18 deaths last year in the Philadelphia prison. So that is crazy. It's No one should be dying in prison, let alone 18 people. And so that's a whole separate conversation, one that I'm really want to have at another show. But this issue of voting is incredibly important, and the issue of redistricting is important. You know, the maps, all of the maps are changing. Our congressional maps are changing. Our House of Representatives, our PA Senate maps are changing. And so people who had been used to, working with, a city, a set of elected officials are going to be shifting to a new set of elected officials. And that in itself is traumatic, especially for people who have built good relationships with folks. Then they have to go out and build new relationships, and they have to educate new people about what's going on in their neighborhood. And I think that this issue of, connecting community through the mapping is really important, because like you said, Philadelphia is a big city, and each council district, I think, is 160,000 people, something similar, each councilmanic district. And so it's hard for one person to get to know 160,000 people. But
It's
through
true.
this process where people are influencing how the mapping is done, and influencing at the core of what it means to be connected to your community. Where is your community? Like, where are the natural communities, and where are the unnatural communities that are created because of mapping, and who gets a say? And the other thing is also this issue of the Voting Rights Act, and making districts diverse. If you lack, like the I think, what did I read in the paper? Something about it was Squilla's district that has seen a lot of population growth. And so that population growth is coming from where? The immigrant community. It's coming from the immigrant community. And so communities of color are growing while other communities are not. And so I think that there needs to be, and yet there's the representation is not there. The representation in city council is not there. And so how do we get a diverse city council that's as diverse as the city as well? And the mapping is one of the ways that we get it done. So I just, I was so glad that you were able to join the conversation, because I think that it's important for people to stay active and engaged in this process, because their voices do matter. Because when the elected officials are coming out, or people who want to seek elected office are coming out, your vote matters. So
Hmm.
your voice should matter too.
No, you hit it, and I wear a few hats. I'm also the chair of the Political Action Committee in Philly for the Philadelphia branch NAACP. So when you talked about prison outreach, that's something that's on our agenda, in our legislative priorities for this year. Our goal is to educate and push, for not just for Black folks, but for all people. And I think when we talk about you know voting in this process, one thing about working in this process is the fact that I got a chance to talk to a lot of people, right?
Hmm.
And I'm talking about people who, folks from the Asian community. We've seen and definitely in the increase in population, and their goal is like, we want representation. We have the
Mhm.
number.
Mhm.
Don't break
Mhm.
us up.
Mhm.
We want to be represented. Like, we want to get in the game. We want to be a part of this democracy, right? And we've also
Right,
seen that
exactly.
the federal government mandated, especially, and we're working with the city commissioner's office to mandate that, we increase the language access to our ballots.
Yeah.
That's a part of representation as well. For the first time, we're adding Chinese,
Mhm.
to the ballot so that people can
Mhm.
have access. And we have the opportunity to add another, 14 different languages to make this a transparent process so that folks can be represented. And this redistricting process, literally, people are like at the forefront and saying, hey, we want a part of this process. And it's like, it's beautiful, to be honest with you. Like, to walk in a room and to facilitate some of these rooms where when you walk in, you have about 30 different nationalities and different languages. It is a beautiful thing that this is Philadelphia. Like, this is
Yeah.
Philadelphia. And we're
Yeah.
the birthplace of this country. And we have the
Mhm.
opportunity to lead by example, and we have to include everyone's voice. That's what makes us so great. And that's what's going to make us so powerful. That's what's going to make us
It
a world-class city. Once we accomplish that, that will make us a world-class city. Sorry if I just ran
so
off,
we
but
got to take a break, but no, we got to take a break. But I do want to talk about this issue of world class city, and I want to talk about the sesquicentennial that's coming up. So let's talk about how we lead by example through um, history and
I think I finally found.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far. A place that I call home.
I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna.
It only takes a spark to make a fire start.
Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
And we're back. Thanks so much for being patient. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I did want to talk a little about the sesquicentennial, and that's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and that's going to be coming up pretty soon here in the city. And I think that this issue of voting rights and fair districts is really important to be able to demonstrate that, democracy is alive here in the city. So is there anything that you're doing to be able to, highlight the issue of democracy in the city?
um, I mean, yes. So I mean, there's a few things. I serve as a consultant to an organization called All Voting is Local, and it's a campaign under the Leadership Conference, which is one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the country. And I oversee 10 counties across Pennsylvania. And what we're doing is I oversee the county administration election work.
Mhm.
where we're building coalitions across, targeted counties of Pennsylvania, especially one of those being in Philadelphia, to build something as we call a pro voter agenda. And that pro voter agenda is to engage and to fight against barriers that prevent people from voting. So some of our agenda items, especially like in Philadelphia, is one is to like increase more voting drop-off boxes in communities of color and low turnout communities, and how much would that cost? Another is to also, lobby city council and work with the commissioner's office to create funding for nonprofit and grassroots organizations so that we can begin a culture of educating people all year round in this space on voter
Mhm.
education, going to our schools, going into our prisons, so that we can truly increase voter turnout. And it also, is language access, making it more accessible for people to vote in their languages. That has been a barrier for so many years in the city, but, not just in the city, but around this country, is that people can't partake in the process because, they may not have the language access needed or to understand it. And we have to continue to push and advocate with our county election officials to make sure that we make this transparent. And I think that is a way of building a transparent democracy when all voices are at the table. So we'll be launching that pro voter agenda in Philadelphia very soon. And we have 16 organizations who meet every twice a month, bi-weekly, to talk about issues and how to make it more accessible for people to vote. So we're still building upon that, and we're supporting our county election officials because we know that standing up for democracy is dangerous. Some of these folks have gotten phone calls and death threats, and we have coalitions around like gun violence and education, but do we have coalitions around our voting rights and educating and advocating for policies? We saw that we couldn't get the bill passed in the federal government, and now it's down to the states. And now we
Yeah.
saw that there's been thousands of pieces of legislation introduced around this country preventing people from voting, trying to take away drop boxes, trying to eliminate early voting. And that's a problem because they saw us step up in 2021,
Right.
2020. And they're furious because they see the power. We saw what Mitch McConnell, what he said the other day.
I know. I know.
African
African Americans are not American.
Like, I'm
I
like, what is
know.
going on?
It's not even a dog whistle anymore. It's like in your face. It's in your face. Basically, what they're saying is that you don't matter. We're not concerned about you. You're not important. So, and the interesting thing about how African Americans vote is that we tend to be the conscience of the country. We don't vote for war. We want to make sure that seniors are taken care of. We want social services. We want health insurance. We want the things that are part of the social contract, right? The government social contract. When government says we'll take care of you, African Americans are the ones that hold people to hold our elected officials and our government accountable. And that's what they don't want. They want to be able to have they don't want a platform. Like the Republicans don't want to say what they stand for. And clearly what they stand for is not allowing folks of color or folks or the diverse population of the United States to vote because it shows in their policy.
Dr. King said it best. I was on a panel discussion with WHYY, and we had a discussion on give us the ballot. And Dr. King said the best, and he's been saying it. Give us the ballot. We can put our own judges on the bench. We can put our own governor in the governor's mansion. We can put our own
Yep.
state senators and the legislators. Just give us the ballot.
Right.
And when we understand the power of our ballot, like John Lewis said, our ballot is more powerful than a bullet.
Right.
And then when they're targeting us, we must protect that at all costs. Because
Exactly.
this is what's playing the level field in this country. When it comes to our voting, it ain't about rich or poor or middle class or lower class. This is the playing level field. And we've been, our community has been hit with so much disinformation on it's not
Hmm.
important to vote, or they're
Hmm.
not doing anything, or the people who even look like you is still not doing nothing. And it's just like we can't get bombarded by that foolishness, because when we talk about funding education and we look at the formula from Philadelphia schools to our suburban schools, and we wonder why that those suburban schools got a higher graduation rate and their kids are going to college, but then we're trying to figure out what's going on with our kids. It's politics.
Right.
It is, I would say it's power with tricks. It's power with trick, because then we're basing your, the revenue based on the income taxes, the property taxes, and who create the property taxes, who legislate on the property taxes, so I can separate you based on income.
Right.
And we have to understand, like, that hits home. That hits home. When our kids are out of school, when our kids don't even have enough computers when we're going to send them home, or when our kids don't have enough resources, what is that? When we talk about who's over allocations on funding to go to certain things, it depends who we put in office. That depends.
And I think that's a direct result of what's going on now with this increase in violence and with our young people. They know their books are old. They know they're not getting a quality education. And so a lot of ways they know what their pathway is, right? And so we have to figure out those ways to prevent the school to prison pipeline. But also right now we're dealing with this hopelessness. And if we can figure out ways to be able to we have to expect excellence, and expecting excellence is also demanding excellence from those folks who are in positions of that we elect, right? We give them the authority to be able to make sure and take care of the folks that are in their districts. And so that goes back again to this issue of fair districts. I think when we had the gerrymandering and in the past, Democrats outnumber Republicans by 1 million votes in Pennsylvania. And yet we don't control the House of Representatives or the Senate because of gerrymandering, right? And that's the reason why we can't get the fair funding for our public schools, because we are controlled by a legislature that will not push forward that issue. So this is critical. This issue of districts and who represents who and how they represent them is really important, because it matters on the tail end. It matters because if we can't have a say in who's representing us, then we don't have a say in how our lives are going to be in the future.
You hit it on the point. You hit it right on the nail.
Yeah. So, I know that you only could stay with us for about 45 minutes. So we're heading into the almost 9:40. But tell us about, can you just say again how people can get involved? Like, what are the ways that people can, like, what time should people be showing up in city council? What floor is the space on? I mean, people. In my work, I wear a lot of hats as well. And my concern is that people don't know the difference between a city council person, a state representative, a state senator, and a congressperson. They often don't know because we don't have civics in school anymore. So people get confused, and we spend a lot of time explaining to folks, like how to make the person who's representing you accountable.
I'm actually putting it in the chat really quick too. So just to kind of reiterate, if you are, I'm just going to challenge everyone. In 2022, it's work to be done. It is work to be done in our communities. It is work to be done around the country. But it is work to be done because there are so many things that we are facing as communities. And one thing that I love is the fact that neither one of us are struggling in silence, because so many people are going through what we're going through. When we are talking about representation and stepping up to be counted, we must take redistricting serious. With this councilmatic redistricting process, and when the maps were dropped, January 26th at 10 a.m. This is going to be virtual because there's no, I don't think they're having, it's going to be virtual. If you are interested in submitting testimony, please call chris.goy@phila.gov. Email him. If you have any questions about the testimony process, the time, what time you'll be speaking, please call the city council office, the government office who will be handling this, and that number is 215-821-6625. If you need any assistance in helping build your testimony and you want to say something, the Committee of 70, we're hosting office hours on Monday at 7 o'clock. If you're interested in that, please send me an email at millennialsinactionhq@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that you get that invitation. If you are an organization and you submitted a map, or you've gotten folks in your community to design the map, I'm asking that you guys reach out to your council people, and let them, you ask them, are they comfortable with the new maps, and is there going to be any changes, and do they have time to meet with you to discuss your voice in this process. So please make sure that you follow up between now and Wednesday. Like I said, Wednesday is the only meeting for folks to testify. Once again, Wednesday is the only meeting for folks to testify. Once this is done, this is going to be in effect for 10 years. Mm-hmm. There can be amendments, but this will be in effect for 10 years. I think I'm okay to say this, but we are looking, to do a press conference surrounding prison gerrymandering, and making sure that those, voters and people on State Road get allocated back to those communities that they come from. So please be on the lookout for that information. And I appreciate you for allowing me to take this space today.
I thank you so much, and definitely send me the information about the press conference so that I can push it out to folks in my network. I wear a lot of different hats too, and it's always exciting to be able to share information with folks in the network, because people, when the more people that you connect with, the more impact you have. So I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule on a Saturday morning to talk to us today. And I just really admire the work that you're doing to elevate this issue, to make sure that the people's voices are heard on all the issues, on criminal justice reform, on prison reform, on voting rights. And I think that this is the critical issue of our time. How do we make sure that we preserve our democracy? And we are going down a road where our democracy is dying. And so we need to make sure that we get young people, and young people are the key. Young people are the key to preserving our democracy. And so I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it's not pretty. It's not, it don't pay a lot. It's frustrating, but but it matters, right? And my grandfather used to always say, Aisha, if you don't have a target on your back, you must be doing something wrong. So yeah. So congratulations on the work that you're doing. And you got a lot of support. You may not know it, but you got a lot of support.
And I'm gonna leave my cell phone in here, because I know that sometimes I get slowed up on mails, but this is my cell phone number.
Great.
Am I doing? Should I put that up there? Hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Go ahead. You can go ahead and put it in the chat. So yeah, go ahead and do that, and then that way, folks will know that that you're committed, and the ways to be able to make sure and get it. Look, me, I deal with email. If you text me, I mean, I get it. If you call me, I definitely are going to get it. But everybody deals with how they communicate in different ways, and so I appreciate you being transparent about the best way to get in contact with you. So again, Abu, Edwards, Millennials in Action, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to invite you back at some point. Let's just make sure that we stay in connection so that we could give updates about what's going on with this issue. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So right now, this is the part of the show where we have to decide, are we going to take a break? So I have to ask my producers, are we going to take another break so that we can do our commercials? So yeah, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back. So thank you so much for listening to Voices of Change, and I'm your host, Aissia Richardson.
Do you remember our first group photo? This is it. Smiles all around, even though we were all nervous.
Who could have imagined that our first weekend together would soon turn into a lifetime of memories?
You're an amazing young man. Your brothers and sisters really look up to you. They're a big brother.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
You know, it took 20 years, and I got my third child, who was 17 at the time.
There are so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
I ain't never felt so much love before in my life.
Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Aissia Richardson. I am your host of Voices of Change here on Usula Media. And today we were talking about redistricting from the City Council. And there's going to be a really important City Council meeting on Wednesday to discuss the redistricting of City Council. We've had districts increase and decrease in population. And so we also had a census from 2020 that unfortunately the Trump administration released the data late. And so right now we're in the process of redistricting our congressional seats and our House of Representatives seats, as well as our seats on the City Council, our local City Council. So it's Congress, it's the House of Representatives and the state and the state Senate. And I did put a couple of websites that you can look at to see how the districts are going to be redone on the House of Representatives side and the Senate side. I left those in the chat there. If you Google it, you can find the new maps for city counts for state Senate and state House of Representatives. It's really interesting information, and people are going to be shifting who their elected officials are. And it's always confusing for folks about who their elected officials are, because oftentimes they may only see them every couple of years when they're going out to vote. But I encourage everyone to find out who your city council person is, to reach out to that person, to ask to be included on their mailing list, to reach out to your congressperson, to ask them to be included on the mailing list, to be included in their telephone town halls, to reach out to your state elected official to be included on their mailing list, to be included on their telephone town halls. It is interesting information that you receive from your state elected officials and your city and your federal elected officials. Everything from how to get a social security card replaced on the federal level to how to get your LIHEAP application filled out on the state level. So there's a couple of programs that I did want to talk about, particularly for folks that are struggling right now due to the pandemic. While the unemployment rate in Pennsylvania is falling, we know that some people are just exiting the job market because they just cannot find a job, or the job that they stop working because they feel vulnerable to COVID and they don't want to put themselves or their family at risk, and maybe they have a pre-existing condition. But and we know that people are in crisis right now. So there is a new program that is being sponsored by our state government that is going to help folks that have a crisis with their water. It is called the Low Income Water Assistance Program, LIWAP. And if you are have public assistance, or if you've done a low income heating assistance program application, LIHEAP, you can do the application for the water program on the state's website, Compass, which is where you can apply for social services, or you can get in contact with the water department, the Philadelphia Water Department, to have an application sent to you. But I encourage folks to apply for as many programs as possible, because you don't want to leave resources on the table. We want to make sure that people are accessing all the resources that are available to them, so that we can, make sure that we are, getting the resources that are due to us. the way that I see it is that these resources are like your tax dollars. When you spend money and spend taxes at a store for whatever you pay sales tax for, it's a bucket that you pour into. Every time that you purchase a product and you pay a sales tax, it goes into a bucket. And so that bucket should pour back out for you in the form of resources. So the low income water assistance program, the information is at dhs.pa.gov. That's dhs.pa.gov. And the applications are now being accepted for the low income household water assistance program. It's called LIWAP. And you don't have to repay it. It is a grant and it's up to $2,500. And so if you have a past due water bill, a termination, or you're in danger of having the utilities cut off in the next 60 days, you want to apply for this program. You can apply online, or there's a paper application. There's also an application in Spanish. And so the customer service center is 877-395-8930. That's 877-395-8930. And thank you so much to our producers, Phil, for putting the information up. And the applications are also available in person at your county assistance office, or you could call the PA relay at 711 if you have a hearing impairment. But I just want to encourage people to apply for this program. Do not leave resources on the table. Make sure that you or your family members have the information about this program. It is really important that folks apply for services. Don't wait until a service doesn't exist anymore. Do it right away. These programs, they tend to be very popular. People apply for them and then the money runs out. So or they wait until after the money's run out. So make sure that you apply now, because when you apply and the money does run out, there are opportunities for there to be readjustments, because this is a statewide program. And what ends up happening, like the rental assistance. The rental assistance program is over right now, because in Philadelphia, we exhausted all of our resources. We spent millions of dollars in the rental assistance program, but there are other counties, Lawrence County, Lackawanna County, Lancaster County, that may not have spent all of their rental assistance resources. So the state is in the process of reallocating those resources so that we can put more resources online for Philadelphia. And so while it's over, the rental assistance program is over, you still got to pay your rent. Make sure your rent is paid. People are getting evicted. We're in active eviction status now. We just, it's a tragedy, but it is occurring. But that rental assistance program may come back once those resources are reallocated. The other program that I wanted to talk about is a program that the governor just announced. It's the Homeowner Assistance Fund, or the Pennsylvania Homeowner Assistance Fund, PAHAF, and that is PAHAF.org. And this is going to be administered by the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, PHFA. PHFA is also an entity that does lending to low-income homeowners. So beginning on February 1st, and I'm telling you this now so that you can do your applications early, so you could do your applications as soon as possible, that PHAF is doing applications for homeowners that need mortgage assistance. And so many of the agencies that are located in our neighborhoods, like ASE, like APM, like the Affordable Housing Centers of Pennsylvania, are doing the applications to be able to help people who are who need assistance with their mortgages. And there's on that website, PAHAF.org, there is an eligibility criteria that you can complete, and then it'll tell you what's also covered. But I would really encourage you to get in touch with the PHFA homeowner, low-income homeowner programs, those programs, first-time homebuyer programs, because those programs are going to be your window to this application to be able to assist with mortgage. Please do not lose your home because you've been sick or because you have lost income due to COVID. This program is $350 million that has been brought online to be able to help homeowners pay their past due mortgages. So please, get information about how to save your home. If you don't need it, share it with someone about how to save their home. Often, adults are suffering in crisis, and they're not sharing that they're in a crisis. So even if just share the information. You never know who's going to need it. You never know who you talk to about something that they're going to be the ones that say, "Yeah, I do need this." So the phone number there for getting assistance is 888-987-2423. It's 888-987-2423. That's the Pennsylvania Housing Assistance Fund that was created through stimulus money. Again, money that we paid into as federal taxpayers, and that's pouring back out to us to be able to, make sure that those folks that need assistance with their mortgage are going to be able to get the assistance. So I really encourage folks to take the information and share the information, because you never know who needs to be able to get this assistance. And I just, we sometimes you just set, you make a flyer, you do a Facebook posting, and you never know who's looking and who needs the help. So we on Voices of America, Voices of Change, like to make sure that our listeners get the information that can help them and their families. And we try to make sure that you get the most up-to-date information as possible, not stuff that's old, not stuff that is, is a program has ended, but information before a program starts so that you can share it with the people who are in your network of support or in your networks of caring. So this is our show today. We really enjoyed, talking to everyone about this issue of redistricting. And every show we like to share community information and social service information, because in addition to our civic engagement and our information about electoral politics, we like to make sure that folks get social service information as well, because those two things go hand in hand. These things that are our social service programs are a direct result of the folks that we elect as our elected officials. Not every state is doing this. Not our. We have a Democratic governor, and he made sure that our citizens are going to be able to access these really important programs. If we don't have that governor, then we don't have these programs. If you're not educated about what you're voting for or who you're voting for or what they stand for, and you're not holding people accountable pre-election before they get elected, then you're not going to get the programs that you want to see for your friends and your family and the people who are important to you in your community. So my position around why it's important to stay civic engagement is policy, programs, and funding. All of those things go hand in hand with our elected officials. They're the ones that set policy that impact our lives. They're the ones that promote programming that impact our lives. They're the ones that make funding available to support the programming. So those three things are why we ask people, what do you care about, and how is it that you can help me to be able to be in a better position in my life or in the life of the people in my family. So thank you so much for joining Voices of Change. I do want to give a shout out to my husband, Kevin. He really has been a big supporter and a booster and helps me to be able to craft shows and gives me great ideas. And so I love you, Kevin. And I want to make sure that folks know that the show is done in a collaboration with our producers. And I want to say thanks to Phil, and who just, kept it together through all of my tech issues. And so thank you so much for joining Voices of Change here. this today. My name is Aissia Richardson. I'm your host. We're going to have a great show next week, and I'm looking forward to staying engaged with folks who listen to the show and, keeping everybody, informed about what's going on in our local, our national, and our regional politics. So take care, everybody. Bye.